another exciting episode on the show, a podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. What if the reason your business isn't getting media attention has less to do with your lack of expertise and more to do with the way you are presenting your story? Getting featured in the media can transform a business, but for many entrepreneurs, PR feels like a mysterious game where journalists hold all the cards, and the only way is to hire an expensive agency. Today's guest has a very different view. Kate Engler is a PR and media strategist with more than 30 years of experience, and some senior journalists have famously dubbed her the PR anti-Christ because she challenges the traditional PR agency model. Rather than wanting every business owner to become a client, our guest today teaches entrepreneurs how to understand the media, create compelling stories, pitch journalists, and generate publicity themselves. Through our Meet the Press masterclass, she brings carefully selected entrepreneurs face to face with journalists from major Australian media outlets, giving business owners the opportunity to pitch their stories directly. Our graduates have gone on to appear across television, radio, newspapers, magazines, and specialist publications. I guess today is irrelevant, direct, experienced, and passionate about putting the power of publicity into the hands of today's business owners. Today we are going behind the scenes of the media industry, what journalists actually want, why businesses get ignored, and how AI is changing pitching, and how entrepreneurs can stop waiting for publicity and start creating opportunities for it. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Darlington. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed that introduction.
It was fantastic. Yeah, I think the thing I loved about the introduction the most was that you let the listeners know that firstly, I don't want them as an ongoing client, which is important. I'm not here to sell anything. But secondly, that they can have the power of media in their own hands. And that's really the message.
Thank you so much, Kate. So you have been called the PR Antichrist by senior journalists. That's quite a nickname, I must say. So why did you why did you earn it, and how do you consider it a compliment?
It is a huge compliment. So the traditional agency, PR agency model, and I've worked inside PR agencies on both sides of the country, so I kind of know the way that they work. They want to lock clients into a 12-month contract or 6-month contract, charge them thousands and thousands of dollars per month. I recently spoke with a not-for-profit who had a quote from a PR agency for $5,000 per month for a 6-month contract. That's $30,000. And so when I was in agencies and saw gorgeous entrepreneurs come through the door so excited about what free media, free publicity could give them, and then they'd leave feeling really dejected and despondent because they couldn't afford that those ongoing agency fees at such a high level. And so we created both an online training program called Your Publicity Lab for those folk who are not in Australia, and also a Meet the Press Masterclass, which is an in-person event in Australia, so that business owners can generate their own publicity. And when I was having a conversation with one of the former editors of BRW, which is a business magazine that used to be in print here in Australia, he's like, oh my God, no one does PR the way that you do. You're a bit of a disruptor. You're a bit of an antichrist, really, aren't you? And I was very happy with that mantle because we have disrupted the industry. And as a result, Darlington, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of businesses who would otherwise not have secured media coverage have gone on to generate media coverage at will. So it's pretty exciting to be that sort of a disruptor.
All right, thank you so much, Kate. So you have spent more than 30 years working around PRO and journalism, right?
So could you
So
just
what
repeat
about
that? I didn't quite get that.
I said you have spent more than 30 years working around PR and journalism, right?
Yes, yes.
So tell us, what do most business owners fundamentally misunderstand about how the media actually work?
Oh, yes. Great question, Darlington. I guess business owners who want publicity are typically usually already successful. You know, they've built their business, they've grown their business, they've got clients, they're making a big difference out there in the world, which is fantastic. And so they have a normal way of languaging their business. They've got a kind of a proven way that they pitch their business to potential customers. And that clearly works for them because they're already successful. The trip hazard with business owners going to the journalists is they take that same customer pitch and try and pitch like that to the journalists, and nothing will have them fail faster. The great irony of media coverage is it's not the journalist's job to promote your business. Now, they know that you're going to get the cascading effect of credibility and customers and kudos that automatically flow and inevitably flow from media coverage, but it's not the journalist's job to promote the product, the service, the course, the widget, the new retreat. It's the issues that sit behind that. And so entrepreneurs and business owners need to kind of fundamentally shift their thinking away from this is what I've got and this is what I do, and look through a different set of lenses, approach media in a different way, and that's through a news they can use mindset. It's a very different way of thinking about what they do.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was wonderful. So, you talk about the two sides of the media coin. What are those two sides, and which one should a business owner want to be on?
Sure. So the two sides of the media coin, there's the paid side. It's commonly referred to as advertising, right? You pay your money, you get your space or your time or whatever it is on the media that you have purchased that advertising space from. And advertising can pretty much be summed up as me, enough about me. What do you think of me so far? Businesses are clearly showcasing what they have and what they do to potential customers. That's the paid side. The other side of the media coin is the unpaid side of media, what's often called earned media, media coverage, publicity. All of those words mean the same thing. And the power of that, Darlington, is that businesses simply cannot buy editorial space on the unpaid side of the media coin. It needs to be earned, and it needs to be earned with clear, concise pitches. That is news that the journalist can use, as I mentioned earlier. But the other reason is that the unpaid side of the media coin has become even more valuable is there's been research recently where 1 million AI citations were analyzed. Of those 1 million citations, 82% of those referenced earned media mentions. So it's kind of like now that AI is taking over the world, if AI can't find you through media mentions, through earned media, through publicity, then they're not going to serve you up to the people who are looking for what it is that you've got. Because if AI can't find you, then certainly your customers can't either.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Kate. So, what makes something a story? What makes something a story rather than simply an advertisement disguised as a press release?
Yes, so most pitches need a press release, a media release, and that is a written document that plants the seed of the story. Lots of people think that a media release is them writing the finished product that they see in the newspapers or magazines, in the case of written media. But a media release is not that. It is the planting of the seed of the story that has the journalist energetically lean in and want to know more about the issue. And I'll give you an example. We had this gorgeous optometrist who did our Meet the Press masterclass last year in Melbourne, and she specialises in children's vision. She said that approximately 50% of the kids that come in for an eye test who also have a diagnosis of ADHD, 50% of those kids don't actually have ADHD. They've got a vision problem where both of their eyeballs don't work in unison. It's called binocular vision disorder, as I now understand it, because Jess, the optometrist, told me what it's called. But basically it means that the eyeballs are not working in unison. They're not working together. And so the child is disruptive, can't pay attention because their eyes aren't working together. That was a fantastic pitch about 50% of kids with ADHD potentially not needing to be medicated for ADHD because they don't have it. And that was the pitch, rather than I'm an optometrist and I can sell you a set of glasses. And when she pitched that, one of the major current affairs programs in Australia called A Current Affair picked it up and ran with it. And there was about a 7-minute story on her and what she does and this particular issue with kids' vision. So that's just one example of how business owners need to think a bit differently about what it is that they do.
Okay. So let's talk about DIY PR. What's the biggest mistake business owners make when they try to get publicity themselves?
Well, the first thing is they pitch to the journalists like they pitch to customers that we talked about earlier. That's really important. Lots of another mistake that they make is they don't read or listen to or watch the media that they are about to pitch to. Every single journalist will say, please understand what we cover. Please consume us, whether that's, TV, radio, or in print. Please understand who our audience is, what our audience is looking for. Please have read or watched or listened to some of our programs so that you have an idea. Pitching blind will often, almost always, result in a failed pitch. So that's another mistake that they make. And they also don't understand, and not because not because they're foolish, but because they may not have been exposed to the media landscape before. You really need to understand the rhythm of whatever media outlet you are pitching to. For example, we had a radio producer whose program went from 5:30 till 8:30 a.m. That was the show that she produced. On one particular day, she got an email from a PR agency declaring that particular day was International Parrot Day. Now, who knew there was such a thing, Darlington? But apparently, parrots all around the world celebrate this day. But the PR person didn't understand the rhythm of the program that this producer was in charge of, because the program's over by 8:30 on that day, and this PR person didn't send the media release to her till 9:30 on that day. So the PR person clearly didn't understand the rhythm of the program that this particular producer was in charge of. So it's really important that you do understand the rhythm of the media that you are wanting to approach.
Okay, honestly, I've never heard of what Parrot Day is the first
Well,
time.
that makes three of us, because the producer hadn't heard of it either, Darlington. I haven't, you haven't. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe International Parrot Day needs a new PR person, because nobody knows that day exists.
Nobody knows. Okay. So, so tell us, what is the number one door opener when approaching a journalist? I'm not the right audience for that story.
Yes. So that number one door opener is the media release. And one of the mistakes people make when they go to write their media release, well, there's two actually. One is that I mentioned earlier, that they try to write the finished story. That's the one mistake. But the other mistake, they write the media release as if their potential client is going to see that. And the potential client is never going to see that media release. That piece of communication, that media release, has an audience of one, and that is the journalist. Now, you may send it out to 5 different media outlets. That's fine. But we must always think of an audience of one journalist. The journalist is the audience for that media release. It's not the business's customers, because they'll never ever see that document. So again, laser focus on what you want to say, what is the news that the journalist can use, and pitch it to them like you're planting a seed for something bigger. So the journalist is enticed and intrigued by the pitch, rather than it being a document that is written with the end customer in mind, because that will head you to the bin faster than lightning.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was wonderful. So you have brought up Monty Python as having lessons for businesses trying to generate publicity. I have to ask, what does Monty Python have to do with PR?
Maybe that's just my weird, quirky sense of humor, Darlington. But there is a great Monty Python irony. Well, there are 2 really Monty Python ironies. The first is, it's not the journalist's job to promote your business. That's the great irony. They know that you're going to get incredible coverage out of what they do with you on their screens or their airwaves or in their pages, but it's not their job to promote your business. So that's the great Monty Python irony. But the other Monty Python irony is, lots of businesses sit there like the scene out of Life of Brian, and they think, oh, what media stories do I have? I don't have any media stories in my business. And it's a bit like when the Monty Python team sat around and said, what have the Romans ever done for us? And someone says education. Right, other than education, what have the Romans done for us? Or sanitation. But other than education and sanitation, what have the Romans done for us? And someone else says roads. Okay, other than education, sanitation, roads, what have the Romans done? And they go on and on and on and on and on, and find that there's actually about 12 things that they use every day that the Romans have done for them. That can often be the Monty Python trap inside businesses, because they don't see their newsworthy stories. They don't see their newsworthy elements that are in their business, because they live with them every single day. They don't notice them as being media worthy, but they actually often are. And so we want businesses to look at their business with beginner eyes, with fresh eyes, so that they can see the media angles that are literally sitting inside their business, being unloved every single day of their existence.
Okay, thank you so much for clarifying what the Monty Python is. So, can a journalist actually tell when a pitch has been heavily written by AI? Because AI is
Yes.
okay. And what does that do to the credibility of the person sending it?
Well, it does a couple of things. I've had a journalist say to me, if she gets an AI written pitch, it tells her 2 things. One, that the person is lazy. That's never a good attribute to have connected to your personal brand. And 2, that they are not the expert they pretend to be, because all AI does is go out and grab the opinions that are already in existence. AI doesn't necessarily know what you think about the issue. And what the journalist wants is your expert opinion on whatever issue they're dealing with. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, particularly recently, Claude have announced that they're going to watermark every piece of writing that that it creates. Even if you copy and paste it out of Claude into a Word document, it's still going to have that watermark. So that's a dead giveaway. But journalists are trained writers. They are intelligent, investigative people that have got a brain to kind of sniff out the good from the bad. And so they can often tell if something has been written by AI, and they just won't run it. And in Australia, a couple of months ago, there was an article that was written by someone in one of the universities here in Australia. And after it was published in the Sydney Morning Herald, one of the other journalists looked at it and said, I think this might be AI. There's a bit of an AI sense about it. And so they contacted the original author because this was an opinion editorial. So this person had submitted the whole kind of letter to the editor type of thing. And the person admitted that they'd written the bulk of it, but they'd also used AI. And immediately that story was taken down. So if you use AI to create your media release, it'll end up in the bin. But the converse side of that is AI loves earned media and it will preference you in the citation. So there's two sides of the AI coin, just like there's two sides of the media coin.
All right. Kate, thank you so much. So let's reverse the situation. If a journalist receives 100 pitches in their inbox, what makes them stop scrolling and open one?
Oh, well, that's the subject line. The subject line of the email needs to be really super sexy. And what I mean by that, I don't mean salacious. I just mean sexy in that it stands out. Because a lot of people, when they send their media release to journalists, they put in the subject line media release. Well, that's really boring. I spoke at an event years ago that was for tradespeople. It was being put on by a woman. And so I sent a media release out promoting the event, and it was helping tradies learn how to market themselves better. And so the headline was "Ladies want tradies to expose themselves," which is a play on words, right? We were talking about doing more than a sign on the side of the van to expose what they do, to promote what they do. And so if you can imagine a journalist reading down hundreds of emails, media release, media release, media release, media release, media release, ladies want tradies to expose themselves, media, oh, hang on a minute. We instantly get their attention with that subject line. So I want your listeners to imagine the subject line is like a $15 million waterfront property with its own private jetty and a $5 million yacht moored off the end of it. That is how valuable the subject line is. And a good, strong, sexy subject line will certainly stop the journalist from scrolling past you.
Okay. So Kate, you are also a strong advocate for boundaries. How do boundaries help business owners protect their time, energy, and value, especially when they are trying to build relationships with the media?
Yes, I think boundaries are a really important thing for business owners to build muscle in. And sometimes that means saying no to clients because they're not a good fit and having a really clear boundary around that. You know, when we assess applications for our masterclass and everybody has to apply, we decline between 20 and 30% of people because they're not a fit and we're really clear on what our boundaries are. And in fact, Darlington, I had one man apply a few years ago and he was terribly important. Just ask him. He was quite a big deal. Just ask him. He was super successful. Just ask him. And I thought, oh my goodness, I cannot spend 2 days in a room with you. And so I declined him because I knew the journalists that come to our masterclass each year to meet business owners would kind of raise their eyebrow at just how self-promoting he was. He was a big deal. Just ask him. And so when I declined him, he then offered to pay double. And when I still declined him, he's like, oh, nobody in their right mind says no to double the money. And I said, it's not about being in my right mind. It's about being in my right integrity. And it's not for sale. Because at the end of the day, as business owners, we need to be able to sleep with ourselves at night. We need to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and know that our integrity is intact. And that's where boundaries can really help businesses. And whilst it is scary to say no to some clients, because you may not know where the next one is coming from if you're in a service-based industry, often those clients that you know you should say no to, but you didn't, they become the biggest headache that you'll ever have. So boundaries and knowing what you will and won't stand for are really important, because then you attract the sorts of clients that meet you in that standard. They meet you in that level of integrity, and they meet you in that commitment. And they are the best, funnest, most successful clients that any of us can ever work with.
Okay, so it's you have helped businesses move from simply getting one piece of publicity to becoming recognized as experts journalists return to. How does a business owner make that transition from someone with a story to someone who the media calls?
Oh, great question. And this is all about being great talent. It is when you first pitch to the journalist and they pick up your pitch and they interview you and they put you on their screens or on their radio waves or quote you in their pages. If you perform well and give them and their audiences what they want, what they're looking for, what's going to add value, what's going to inform or educate, the journalist will often invite you back. And then if you perform well the second time, then you get asked back again and again and again and again. You know, we have a physiotherapist who first did our masterclass back in 2015. And he was on one of the major breakfast television programs just last week, still, 10, 11 years later, because he's always performed like a champion, and he's given the journalists exactly what they need for their audiences. That's the way to build relationships with journalists. Never pitch them a dud story. Always make yourself available. And when they do interview, make sure you shine and give their audience exactly what they need.
Okay, so finally, if someone listening owns a business today and wants to generate meaningful media coverage without hiring a traditional PR agency, what is the first thing you would have them do this week?
I think they need to understand that media is just a game. It's a game for eyeballs and eardrums. The one TV station wants to have more eyeballs than the other TV station. Radio wants more eardrums than another radio station. So the first thing to understand is that media is a game. There are certain rules of the game, and there are particular tools of the game. So it's important that business owners who want to generate media coverage are across the rules and the tools of the game. And of course, we provide all of those in our publicity lab, your publicity lab. All of those resources and how to play the media game are there for people who live outside of Australia.
All right, Kate, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today on the show. One thing that stands out from this conversation, I think, is that opportunities often remain out of reach, not because the opportunity doesn't exist, but because we don't understand how to approach it. The media, I think the media isn't simply a machine waiting to promote your business. It is made up of people looking for stories that matter to their audience. And once we can understand that distinction, then we'll stop asking, how do I get publicity? And we'll then start asking, what story can I tell that people genuinely need to hear? And that's a very, very different mindset. And
You
perhaps
have nailed it.
yeah, and perhaps that's the real lesson. You don't always need someone else to open the door for you. Sometimes you need to learn how the door works. So, Kate, is there a question you wish I would have asked you that I did not ask you?
No, I think your questions have been bang on. And I love your analogy then of don't have someone else open the door for you. Learn how to open the door yourself. I love that. That is just a beautiful way of describing it.
Okay, thank you so much. So, for those who would like to connect with you and learn more about what you do, how can they do that?
Yes, the best place is yourpublicitylab.com. And I'm on all the socials as the Publicity Princess.
All right. Thank you so much. And to my audience, if this episode is speaking to you, make sure you share to someone out there who needs to hear this. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's been a real treat, Darlington. Thank you so much for having me.